Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight. I'm Alexis, and I'm joined by David. And on our show here, usually we do various different conversations on just about all the latest movies and shows coming out, as well as the news concerning that as well. Today, though, we're here for something very different, and in my view, also pretty special as well. David and I are both avid fans of this wonderful show called Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We've discussed it at length for God knows how long at this point. And we're going to be trying out something new this time. This is going to be in the same vein of those reactions slash commentaries we've been doing recently on the channel. It'll be for YouTube only, for YouTube's eyes only, apparently. And this is going to be a recap, reaction, review kind of thing. I have been noticing lately that there has been some newfound interest in this show. I don't quite know myself what those reasons are just yet. However, I don't think we need really much of an excuse to talk about this show now, do we? And so, as a matter of fact, a few minutes before we even did this recording, we were just talking about it, David and I, and we were like, why not? Well, what's literally stopping us from doing it? Let's just go for it. I know in recent weeks we had a discussion on the Red Spotlight podcast where I had noticed some newfound interest, whether it be on One Media's reaction channels or Jamie Dirac, who is basically the number one S.H.I.E.L.D. fan in her circle, is doing her own show called Love in the Time of Hydra, where they're doing not reactions, but basically reviews to every single episode on the 10th anniversary. So this week, as a matter of fact, they just hit the 10th anniversary of episode 16, which was Turn. That was if you watch the show, you know what I mean. And Clark Gregg was their guest on their show this week. Isn't that cool? And they're only a year, but not even a whole year into it. But Jamie Dirac knows the cast very well because she even Clark said, I was watching their episode just today. Clark said that she's the only one he remembers of all the many years that they've been doing like press for the show. So quite the impression she must have made for sure. And Jamie Dirac had mentioned that when she had asked Clark what episode he wanted to do, this was the one that he picked, which was episode 17, which was the big Hydra reveal. I understand, of course, that, there are people who may not have watched the show, and so I just want to be flat out and honest with you guys. I love this show, as that will be made very clear throughout however long we do this. I just want to warn you, if you haven't seen the show, this might not be for you, because there's going to be a lot of just know-how that you kind of have to just to follow our conversation, I feel. I want you guys to watch this for sure. I would say that if you don't care about spoilers, come along for the ride. If you already have seen the show and want to just talk about it, I that's how I am kind of inspired by it. There's a lot of content out there for like new fans of the show, and good for them, but there's not much new in the way of fans of old. The ones that kind of know the show inside and out and just kind of want to talk about it. And I think what I envision this is, if you're like me and you happen to be rewatching the show all over again and you kind of want a pal to talk about it, we're here for that. So I think that's the audience specifically. But of course, our doors are open for anybody that wants to watch us and listen to us. By all means, I think we're going to have some really interesting insight for these shows. We're going to try and have these out regularly on a weekly basis. An episode a week. There are 136 episodes, so I imagine we'll be here for a minute, and we probably will take maybe some breaks in between seasons. So I don't know how long this will last. This certainly isn't our first time talking about the show on our network, the Red Spotlight Network. In the past, I want to say that back in 2020 we did reactions. Well, not reactions. But we should have done reactions, but don't worry, we'll do them now. But we did reviews to the final season, so we have. This is almost kind of like a blast from the past, David, as a matter of fact, because we did this before once. But we'll actually have the episode in front of us. So, yeah, we'll be talking over a lot of it. We already know what the moments are. I know, David, this is my first time rewatching this show from the beginning in 2 years. David, probably that or longer. So we have seen these a couple of times. We'll also be talking about, like, what we remember about watching for the first time, what things have changed, also what works better, what doesn't work. There's a lot of really interesting behind the scenes stuff that has always followed the show. And I kind of want to do my best to kind of put it all together for people to keep in context, because I don't want that history to be lost, because I do think it is really interesting. And I also want to plug, as a matter of fact, while I have all of your attention, I do want to plug an amazing video essay that was released by a brand new YouTuber. Her name is called Emma Lee B. This is a month old already, I want to say. But it's gaining traction. Currently has 37,000 hits. The show that Marvel forgot, the messy history of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So you can also even blame her for, I guess, reigniting the flame. But David, I haven't talked enough. What do you think? You seemed up for it. Like, yeah, let's do it.
No, yeah. I mean, I honestly just love doing our audio commentaries, and it's very easy to edit them. But I love editing. So whenever we get a chance to just do any of these, it's always fun for me to do. And so yeah, that's one reason. But also too, yeah, I mean, you kept talking about how there's like a resurgence of love for this show and everything, and so I kind of thought, yeah, let's let's do it. Let's see, like, who knows what kind of fans we can get from this. Hopefully, I would love some engagement in the comments.
Yes, please.
Please. Our comments for the Little Mermaid commentary were pretty cool. I like that everyone's comments on that. We even brought it up. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping we can get some fans out of this too. Not just for our channel, but also fans of the show.
I don't say it nearly enough as I should, because quite frankly, I forget that anyone even watches or listens. Usually, I honestly forget you all are there. I get to the point where it's just me and whoever happens to be joining me in this discussion, whether it be David or anybody else. So sometimes it's just like, it doesn't even occur to me. But yeah, any kind of engagement from anyone, if you have a comment, or even a hate comment, please leave it down below. We love to interact with you guys, especially when it comes to this show. People have different opinions. Also, I will be saying some things that will be upsetting toward people of a different variety. So it's like, but that will only, I think, spark even further engagement, I feel. Yeah. So
I mean, I think we have a lot to say about the show, full of love. Gonna be gushing about what's their names? God damn it. Fitz and Simmons.
Yes.
I am a big shipper for them. I think I'm probably the biggest. I remember, do you remember one time when we talked about talking about doing like a top 10 episodes?
We did.
I still have my list, but most of them is just all episodes about them two, of like their biggest like fights or like biggest moments between the two of them. Like, wow, that's mainly my list.
I wonder what happened that we never did it. We did talk about it.
Yeah, we did, but I mean, I don't know. We just never got to it, I guess. But I mean, we're doing this now. I'll bring them up.
We're doing this now, and maybe we can save that until we rewatch all 136 episodes. And
maybe. I mean, who knows?
And then we can reevaluate what they are. But yours being consumed with Fitzsimmons isn't a surprise. They're like, for many people, they're the show. They're, and that's also one of the cool things about this show. There's, I think, a lot of cool things and a lot of great qualities that make this such a good show. But one of those things is the cast. That if you're only just watching it for a specific character, you'll be more than fed when it comes to that kind of like scene. Yeah, but I know Fitzsimmons particularly were big fan favorites in the long history of the show. But again, part of this experience is to discover this show anew, and to kind of like remember where we were when we first saw it. Because I feel like, remember, when we're going over a show from the very beginning, a lot of the times when we think about the show, we probably have in our minds like the more recent seasons, right? And how the characters grew at that point. However, sometimes it may be kind of a shock to, it's like, oh, that's right, you were like this in the very beginning. Or like, oh, that's right, the show felt like this in the very beginning. So, yeah. There's a lot to say, obviously, about episode 1 or season 1. But I feel like I think we said what we needed to say, right? Yeah. And I feel like our overall feelings will be made very much clear as we go through this episode. So how we're going to do this, we're going to play. You're going to watch and follow along, and then after the fact, we're going to have basically a recap conversation of things that we wanted to build upon, but it's a commentary, so you know how these things are going to go. Any other comments, David, before we start?
No, I'm excited. Let's see how far we can go.
All right, there we go.
Also, the Marvel logo here. Do you miss the original like comic thing one, or would you prefer the one clips of the movies or all that? Which one do you prefer?
Look, that's a loaded question. That's a very loaded question for me, because I feel like I've become quite beleaguered with Marvel Studios and the overwhelming amount of content. To me, Marvel Studios isn't something that exists to me anymore. So when I see the logo these days, I'm just like rolling my eyes. But when I see this logo, and because of what I know follows it, I'm like, oh, I haven't seen you in a while. It's a bit nostalgic, I'm not going to lie, when I see that original logo.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah. No, I guess you could say in the sense like of seeing that original logo, it just kind of shows where it started, I guess, in a sense.
Right.
And I think it's kind of cool.
Heroes and monsters.
Right off the bat, can we just talk about, we talked about the logo already, but we had a voiceover by Chloe Bennett, who stars as Skye, as she is known here in the first 2 seasons of the show. Guys, our feelings on these characters, we're going to be spending a long time talking about like the characters and how we feel about them. But as we go through the process of all these episodes, so just in case if you're wondering like why are we not getting our feelings across at the top, that's why. I just feel like obviously we already said that we like this show a lot. And just to right now as we see what happens, in my rewatches, one of the things that I have found is how, and you could also say this goes hand in hand with how the show was kind of like done dirty by a lot of audiences. But I think, especially in these first episodes, this first part of the show where, and I'll mention it later on, they're kind of waiting for something big to drop in episode 16. And so they kind of have to find how to do this show up until then. But because of that, the show kind of got a bad rap for becoming a villain of the week. Like, it's not very interesting thing. But what I have noticed in these recent, in my recent rewatches of these early episodes is how criminally underrated of a performer Chloe Bennett is, especially with how committed she is to making the material they give her work. I think very clearly, like, she is all of our characters are main characters. But remember how the show was sold. Agent Coulson, Clark Gregg is the lead, but our basically main character is Skye. And the character really does change a lot. I guess on the surface especially it changes a lot as the seasons go. But here, she is this unknown element. But I would actually say that how they made her play the character, especially in this pilot, she's the most realist, honestly, individual in the wider MCU. That canon stuff, by the way, I'm not going to get into that right now. We'll talk about that later. But at the time, when this was treated as like an extension of the Marvel movies, I would say that Skye very much was like, this is the first real person we're following in this universe. And we have to remind, this Marvel's first TV show. This is well before, this is, I think, almost a whole 2 years before Daredevil even happens. So, Chloe has to make a lot work. Also, she has to have great comedic timing, as we'll see throughout this episode. I think one of the best things about the show is that it always had a really fun sense of humor. And we're going to see that play out. Speaking also, yes, go ahead.
Sorry, that hit that he just made of that guy kicking him in the oven. Holy shit, that looked painful. My God.
It was made to look painful, and that also made it funny to me personally. So yeah, that was fun. One of the things that the show also doesn't get enough credit for is its amazing choreography. It's stunt choreography. And this is something they had from day one. And as the show goes across all the different seasons, it continues to elevate, right? Just the fight scenes especially. But also just speaking to what we just saw there, remember, this show had a very, very tiny budget in comparison to the kind of quote-unquote TV shows that you see on streaming these days, by comparison. Season 1, though, had the biggest piece of that tiny budget in comparison to the seasons that came thereafter. I think that their budget got cut several times. I think it got cut in season 2. It got cut again in season 5, I think. So it's it keeps shrinking. But speaking of what we just saw there, we saw a sequence there with Grant Ward, basically in Paris. That was actually shot on location. That's something that kind of has to go away as the seasons progress because of the tiny budget, obviously. And that was a fun sequence. I will say though, personally, and keep in mind, this is coming from somebody who loves the show, that sequence that we just saw might just be the single most useless sequence in the entire show. I mean, just personally, I know that it's supposed to introduce Grant Ward as this badass agent, which is funny to me because I think to a lot of audiences that isn't what was communicated. I think a lot of people had a kind of very love-hate relationship with this character. I know a lot of people hated Ward because he was sold as this Wonder Bread vanilla generic character, and it's really, Marvel, you're giving us a generic character, which put a pin in that. Looking back on it now and looking at the so many number of movies and shows that Marvel has given us, speaking about vanilla generic characters that have no defining characteristics as characters besides personality, just putting it out there. How funny it is how that's what people were complaining about then, whereas now we're we have so many characters that you basically can't define.
Yeah,
but
sure.
the whole point of that was to say it's that on location stuff doesn't really stick as the show evolves as a monetary reality, unfortunately, which, in some instances, I would even say in most instances, you don't notice it as much. There are some times where it's like, yeah, we got to be in this like windowless space again. But for the most part, this show is able to make it work, but I think you can clearly tell, from the aesthetic anyway, especially right now with what we're seeing, they got some money. They had some money to throw around here, because at this time, you got to remember, Marvel, Kevin Feige specifically, Disney, they were like all in on like selling this thing. And this is probably what the show more or less would have looked like. And God even knows what the show would have become if they had stayed as interested. Because as the show went on through season 1, a lot of those other parties like Feige and Disney kind of became less and less vested in to the show, because they all realized this was kind of a bomb. Like, we got to keep in mind, this episode drew 12 million viewers, one of the biggest audiences ever at the time. But as the weeks came and went, the audience dropped.
I think
All
it's
right,
a
guys,
little poop.
to speak about what
knives sticking out of
just
this.
happened
What?
right here. That's funny. A little poop sticking out. So, this is the part where I'm going to be talking about things that, are outside and in the future. So, a couple of things here. For those who are already aware, right now, Grant Ward said to Coulson, I'm a trained specialist. I go in and do the job alone. This team thing, not my speed. That was a rehearsed line in continuity in the show. And later on in the season 1, he's talking to Raina about how he was able to convince the team of his like double agent status, right? And he basically like brought up this line. One of the things that I have found out is Brett Dalton was not aware of the fact that he was playing a double agent until like close to episode 16. However, in the writing of it, I think something else, when you already know what's going to happen, you begin to take a different look at things, right? So I mentioned to you, David, I don't know if you caught it, but earlier on in this exchange, as we're walking into this room, Ward is asking Coulson already about, well, first of all, he acts surprised that Coulson's alive. He already knew, because Garrett told him he was alive. The whole reason Grant Ward is on this mission, and I mean the whole reason he's on this team, is because Garrett sent him to find out what they did to bring Coulson back to life. Because Garrett is dying, and he also wants to not die, so that's why Ward is on here. All the while, everybody else involved believes it was their decision to put Ward there. Maria Hill feels like she put Ward there because she tested him, when in reality, May feels like she picked the team because she was behind the scenes going into the event of this episode. Fury assigned her to be on this team because of her close relationship with Coulson, but specifically to keep an eye on him and make sure he's doing okay. And all the people on the team were handpicked technically by her because she evaluated what was needed to do what needed to be done in the case that things went really bad with Coulson. And so they needed a specialist to put him down. Those are her words. And that specialist would be Ward. So that's May thinking that she picked Ward. Maria also thinks that she picked Ward. Coulson wants Ward on the team because at this moment, why does he want any of these people on his team? He has basically another round of life. Later on in the season, there's another character that he knew before the fact called Aquila Amador, and how he feels like he let her down. And one of the running themes of the season is how Coulson is the same but not the same. He feels changed after nearly dying, or in this case, actually dying. So he'll begin to realize things are off. But one of the things in his like newfound embrace of life is, I know some would say he's surrounding himself with like young people, but really who Coulson is at heart, he's a teacher, he's a leader. And a lot of the people he surrounds himself with are people he feels he can help be the best they can be. That's just part of the good guy that Coulson always has been, right? And also, I feel like that because of how much of that is embedded into the show, it automatically primes us, the audience, to think of these people as less of a team and more of a family, more of an adopted family, because that's how they begin to behave pretty early on in the show. So just to keep all of that in mind going into just, you know, the last couple of scenes. So right now what you're seeing here, Agent May is acting like, you know, she's fine and dandy with this office job. And of course, for those of us who are well aware, and they allude to it actually a lot more than I remember, David. I think when you watch these episodes, you're going to realize that there are a lot of moments where they allude to Bahrain without actually saying Bahrain. And Bahrain was a really pivotal a moment for May becoming who she is in this moment, because as they reveal in a few episodes, May acted, her whole personality was that of like Sky's. But of course, Bahrain happened. We all know what that moment was to her. It changed her fundamentally. So she ended up in this cubicle. By the way, I love this reveal.
Yeah.
And I think this is the first time we actually hear the main theme in the episode.
Yeah, I think so.
Bear McCreary's music on this show, alongside everything else involved in the show, is such an underrated gem, I have to say.
I feel like Bear McCreary is underrated.
In general, right?
Yeah. I mean, come on, dude. Like, I could say just so many more like soundtracks of his. Fucking Masters of the Universe, God of War, Ragnarok, and everything. Like, they were absolutely fantastic. Percy Jackson too. They're great. But oh my god, I feel like he is definitely underrated. Not a lot of people are talking about him, honestly.
No, not nearly as much.
He should almost be talked about as much as like Star Wars. Fuck.
Kevin Kiner.
No.
Oh, or you mean John Williams?
John Williams. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I can almost like I think he should be around that conversation. I mean, obviously, John Williams is like, you know, a fucking master of scores and everything like that. But,
Yeah.
I mean, Bear McCreary, he's getting up there, I think.
Oh yeah, and the music on this show specifically evolves a lot throughout the 7 seasons. Mm-hmm. As the show, like, it's kind of like a chameleon. It changes shape, and so does the music on the show. Right now, we were just introduced to Fitzsimmons, and what a hell of an like first introduction, right? Like these two are like already like babbling / bickering, and you got to hand it to the actors, man. I think like this is one of the better pilots I've seen. Like, they're already like in it. Mm-hmm. The actors, I mean, and I feel like they already have, even though in reality they didn't like fully know who their characters were. Maybe the only one that would be Clark Gregg, because he has played this character before, obviously, in the movies. Mm-hmm. But everybody else, this is their first time playing these characters. Yeah. And I gotta say, while they don't have the full picture just yet, it feels like they know already who these people are from the get-go. Now, they don't stay the same. All these characters, for the most part, change a lot. But I just find it like, watching it again, like, this is such a really easy watch, and it's really flying by, and they're really already into it.
Yeah.
And I mean, we can have a discussion about how we feel about the dialogue, but as far as the performers are involved, I mean, they're killing it. Mm-hmm. Even this camera work, like, again, this is TV. I'm really digging this, especially this transition we're about to see right now. We're going to see this voiceover from Sky. I love this, and I think this also introduces us to like the great sense of humor this show has. So just right here, this moment.
The wind, it's everywhere. You cannot stop the rising
I love how
tide.
dramatic she's being.
Yeah.
You cannot stop the rising tide. You will not find us. And then right here.
We will rise against those who shield us from the
She's
truth.
reaching her peak, and then
nothing can stop us in the...
I love Coulson's face.
Ward's just with the glasses, like, well, serious and everything. It's funny for sure. But also though too, like, you know, she's saying this whole speech and everything. It's like the music is rising and everything. But like, if it's just her by herself, like, it would sound ridiculous. But no, they added those things just to build it up, and it's great.
It works, right? And again, that also just speaks to Chloe Bennett's amazing comedic timing. How she just like she stops. Like, hey, what up? And then she gets bagged. Like, there are a lot of moments in there where she's just like the time, like even right here.
It's one of them the easy way.
No.
No.
Is one of them the easy way? Like, and then her like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I guess to some people, can you believe? Let's just stick with her real quick, David. Did you like this character from the beginning, or did you feel like she was annoying you? Because I think a lot of people found her to be very annoying.
No, I fucking hate it when people say like someone finds a character annoying, because like
In one episode.
Yeah, like unless like the character is like a really big bitch or something like that, then I can understand. But like she's just being a comedic character in this, and I don't, you know, when I first saw her, I was just kind of like whatever about it. I'm still trying to get to know the characters better. I mostly just connected with Fitz and Simmons because they were the nerdy characters. They were the outcast. Technically, Coulson got this team because they were the outcasts and everything, but Fitz and Simmons were the outcasts of the outcasts, and so that's how I kind of connected with them and all that, because they're the geeks, they're the nerds and all that, and I love them. And so with her, she was more so. I mean, she's just kind of she's like us. We're learning this whole thing and all that. And for a character like that, I don't give much criticism towards characters like that, because they're just trying to learn everything that we're trying to learn. So
you also got to keep in mind, like, when Chloe was hired on the show, I wonder if she anticipated to do any kind of stunt work. Because she's not in any action sequences, not really in this season. It's not until next season where things just like really explode. And I'm not even sure if she knew she had it in her, because as we come to find out, when she gets into those Quake scenes, wow, like there are some action beats that she gets where it's like, whoa. And I don't know if she had it in her this first year. Or maybe if she even realized she had that in her, like a really multifaceted performer for sure. And also what we're seeing in these scenes is the value that she can already bring to the team with her hacking abilities, which also, again, I guess some people felt that was a bit like dumb, how that was a skill that would be like valued in this universe. Like there were a lot of things about Skye as a character that people were almost immediately picking apart. And like, I don't know, in a way, I'm not going to say it's exactly a 1-to-1, because The Last Jedi is obviously much bigger than the show, but like, I mean, a much bigger audience, but I kind of feel like a lot of what happened to Skye's character in these first episodes, and I don't mean to the same extent, but similarly, I think she kind of got Rose Tico'd, where like people were just like harping on these things as if they were bad, and then that was it. Like people found her annoying. They thought that like she was just like not worth spending any time over. I think they just, I don't know. There was something about her personality that they found off-putting, and then they were kind of like upset that she was basically the main focus of the show. And I don't know. And then also the dialogue. Do you find it to be bad? Because a lot of people did. Like, I don't know, this is very Whedon like esque dialogue here, and it's moving quite quickly. It's working. Like, I don't see anything here that's like garbage. Especially with like, I'm sorry, who the fuck are you kidding here? Look at this delivery right here.
Those sweaty cosplay girls crowding around Stark Tower.
What? I would... It's one time.
It was one time. It's beautiful. Yeah. But like, here's the thing. What are you comparing this to? The Marvel movies? Oh, I'm sorry. Like, does Iron Man 3 have like a sophisticated like level of script writing and dialogue that Shield doesn't? Mm-hmm. Like, again, just one of the many things that I remember at the time, people just like pointing to like why they were bailing on the show almost from the get-go. And I'm like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. Especially because, like, I don't know, I know I've been mostly talking, David, but like, how is it like watching it so far already? I feel like this is moving really quickly. We're already like, how many minutes? We're like already halfway through.
Yeah, are we? Oh yeah! Wow, literally halfway through. Wow.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's been great so far. I mean, I remember rewatching this. I can't remember. I think it might have been last year. I might have rewatched some episodes. And it was, for one thing, they look so young. Oh my gosh, it's always funny to like rewatch any show that was long running, and you see the first episode, and you're just kind of like, what? Like, no way! You thought he did not look this way. What the fuck? How?
Age is a bitch.
For sure. But yeah, no, it's just fun how we see them in the beginning, for sure. Especially, I feel like, looking at it now, I feel like the one that like changed the most was Fitz, for sure. Like that line, there was one line there where May tells him,
If you're gonna be in the field, Agent Fitz, you have to get your hands dirty.
No, I don't.
But like literally beginning of season 2, he is getting his hands dirty, for sure.
Yeah.
Also, this joke right here, the truth serum. It's just
the hell? I'm sorry. Did that hurt?
Yeah, the truth serum is funny.
Dude, it's hilarious. I love it.
And I don't think the show ever explains it. I mean, the way you're watching it here, the show treats it as if like that's exactly truth serum. Mm-hmm. However, in a few episodes later, Ward says, we made that shit up to get you to play along. But Coulson doesn't ever confirm it. So the show leaves it hanging. If for you to decide, is this actually truth serum, or is Ward just like giving her the appearance of him having to give her the truth? Because if it is truth serum, Hail Hydra. I mean, that could just slip out, right? I mean, that's a big of an issue, I would say. Also, what we were talking about just now about Agent Fitz. Remember, look, this is a character that, talking about getting your hands dirty. In 5 seasons, he basically murders 3 Kree with a wire. There was this episode in the future where he and Simmons are trying to get away from like 3. This is in his whole like bounty hunter era, basically, his whole bounty hunter look. And 3 Kree stumble upon them, and he uses like this wire to basically like slit their throats. That's the same character. Doesn't want to get his hands dirty. So, and then other things that he does, which are very questionable too, as the show goes on. But we haven't talked too much about Mike Peterson here. I think ultimately, like he's good. There are some moments where he's really good, but also it's more so he's less of a character, more of like, I guess, a plot device. Especially how he's used here. Like,
That he's never really seen it and that he wishes you stayed in Tahiti.
It's a magical place.
why are we starting off? There it is, magical place number 1. But what are we here? Right? What are we here to do with Mike? Mike ultimately is here to show to Skye that things aren't as black and white as she feels they are. Because when we start off the show, she's very anti-SHIELD. And she's very just like, people deserve to know the truth. And SHIELD is not about that. And I think almost immediately she begins to see there's a lot more gray to this space than she ever would consider. And almost immediately you see her, she is making herself very useful. Like right now we're going to see in this exchange, they're talking about who he is, and then also this sequence here.
Well, the man is angry at the other man.
I love Clark Gregg's look there. Is like, that's all you got? The man is angry at the other man.
Brilliant. That audio would be great. Thank you very, very much.
It's also just so weird seeing Fitz and Simmons together because they're very cute in this in the first season. But as the seasons go on, though, like they've been through so much shit that like it's almost like, how are you still together? Like how have you made it through this and all that? And it's like they're still a great couple and all that by towards the end and all that, but like it's not the same dynamic as it is like as you just saw here and all that.
No,
it is
not
so
at all.
different. And this is why I love this show too. Like everyone grows in this show. It doesn't feel too stagnant or anything like that. Like I would say with like the Flash and Arrow and all that, I don't feel much growth with those characters like throughout their seasons. Obviously there
were a lot of seasons.
There were a lot of seasons, and obviously there was like character arcs. Arrow, he went from like being like this machine killer and all that to like really wanting to like improve himself, to be a hero, to make connections with his friends and all that. But I don't know. It just I feel like it's a very small arc for like that big of a show, for that long of a show and everything. And then with the Flash too, obviously he struggled with like the whole superhero stuff with no more life stuff, but that's really all that pops up like when I think of those shows. With this one though, I can say like, man, look at fucking Daisy in the first episode versus the last. Like, yeah, she is not the same, but she also is at the same time. Like the only thing I can say about watching the first episode from Arrow to the last is that the action was improved so much from the first and last. Like that's all I can like really say about them. So yeah, it's really great watching this show.
No, for sure. Like even early on, I gotta tell you though, it's like this first season for the most part, they're not played to be like a romantic situation. I didn't think. See, the way that they act toward each other here in this episode, I'm not at no point that I think, oh, those two are gonna end up together. I'm like more like a brother-sister relationship. And then as the episodes go, you begin to slowly, oh, wait a minute, there's something more here. But they're not talking about it, or at least they're not admitting it to themselves yet.
Very similar to the serum Dr. Erskine developed in the 40s for the
super soldiers.
Hey, Marvel fans, they're your references, bitches.
Super soldier
right
serum,
there.
Which is overused by now, honestly. Oh gosh, I didn't like it. Honestly, didn't like it when they brought it up on Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm just like, can we be done with that?
We've done this already. We've done this. Let's move the fuck on. But Falcon and Winter Soldier came out like way after this show. Like if I'm not mistaken, Falcon and Winter Soldier was like still 8 years away from this point. By the way, just for future reference for any characters on this show, it is never, ever a good idea to throw May into a wall. That's talk about balls. And here's your other reference, MCU fans: Extremis, Iron Man 3. There you go.
There's no way that we could possibly...
Don't ever tell me there's no way. It's on you. Get it done.
And again, this stuff is great because it just, it's getting into character stuff. I love how pissed she looks.
You all right?
We'll deal with that later. At length.
I always love how pissed off she looks when shit goes sideways. But what we just saw there, it's like, yeah, that's a key core of who Coulson is. Don't ever tell me there's no way. Especially when it comes to saving lives. I think to me, this is one of the things that he had in common with Steve Rogers in the same universe, right? It's like just not ever wanting to be put in a position where he has to trade lives, right?
For sure.
So it's like he wants to save Mike Peterson because he understands he didn't do anything wrong, really. He was just kind of like suckered into the situation by these centipede scientists, which, again, I know that the show gets a lot of like crap for spinning its wheels, but I mean, for the first few episodes where it was just like villain of the week, but who's funding this centipede operation? The Clairvoyant. Who's the Clairvoyant? John Garrett, and John Garrett is Hydra. So already from the beginning, like everything here is in service to eventually where we're going to be.
You're gonna risk thousands of lives over some nobody. Nobody's nobody, Ward.
Again, right there, that's a key defining line. Nobody is nobody, Ward.
You're right. He is a little bitch.
Dude, oh my god! You watched it a couple of days ago, and when I heard that clip, I just love the emphasis on the B word right there. It's like she forces it out. It's great.
Again, you're giving so many what's the right word here? You're being shown a lot, basically, how resourceful she is and how useful she can be. So, like, this whole idea that she's like, she has nothing to offer the team, and why would they ever, like, bring her along? Come on, man. That was quick work by May. It's like, whoa.
And then right there with that fight, though, even though there's like a lot of editing involved, I feel like they do less and less as the show goes on. For sure.
This is just the first episode, dude. I'm just like, this is good from the get-go. I think people were fucking crazy saying that this was bad. I love how they jump at this, because I remember when I saw this first two, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, we had this like really heartfelt moment, and then it was like what the hell? And then like, because Coulson, right? Doesn't that look like it hurt? Because at first you think it's like, holy shit, he fucking shot him. And then you realize, no. You know what I just put together? I'm thinking, oh man, this is actually pretty fucked up. But I think it shows you what kind of show this is going to be. It's going to be a show that, you know, wears its heart on its sleeve. And it is going to be heartfelt. And remember what was happening at this time in 2013, this change of, about how, you know, the Raimi Spider-Man films were like not as hotly viewed at because they were like, quote unquote, cheesy. And why are they known as cheesy? Because they have a lot of heart. They wear their heart on their sleeve, right?
I mean, that line is like, you mess with all of us, you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us.
Right. And here, I'm not saying that the MCU is devoid of like heartfelt moments, especially when we consider the Guardians movies, right? But even that, I would consider an anomaly. One of the things that the larger cinematic universe has been criticized, including from us, is the idea that they have like gone away from allowing themselves a lot of like really heartfelt moments. And I think what we just saw right here is a bit of a deviation from the movies. And I'm thinking that fans who just watch the movies and they see a moment like that, and they would think, wow, that was over the top. And that was cheesy. And I was like, that means this is not great. So I'm just thinking like, rewatching this, I'm like, maybe that's in part also what turned them off. What do you think?
Sorry, what was your question again? I was looking at this, the flying car.
No, listen, no. The tide is rising. What a great ending.
Yeah, that's great.
Of course, that's also how the last episode ends as well, with Lola flying off, with Coulson in tow. What I was saying is about. I'm thinking that a number of audiences were not as familiar any longer with like really heartfelt moments, and my point was maybe if all they've ever seen were MCU stuff, and they just watch this first episode, and they watch what just happened with Mike Peterson with Coulson, they may think to themselves, well, this seems a bit over the top. This seems a bit cheesy. And they might actually just like use that in part to like, I guess, dismiss the show. So that's an observation. Honestly, it just came to my mind as we were watching this. So that's what I was saying ultimately. I don't know if that's something that sounds plausible to you. That's just something that I'm bringing up right now.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, it's just a weird balance because, like, whenever people talk about that, like, it's cheesy or something like that, then it's like, I really have to question, like, what do you want from this show or movie or anything like that? Because, I mean, I feel like with anything that you love, like, what is it that you remember the most? You don't really, I mean, yeah, you love the action scenes and everything, but, like, really, it's just the heartfelt moments that you remember the most and all that. Or it maybe not necessarily heartfelt moments, but like the funny moments too. It's just like this, it's just a quick moment between the two of them that you're kind of like, oh hey, they're connecting or something like that, or like their relationship is building, and so yeah. Whenever people complain about that, you just kind of have to question like what exactly do you want from this story.
I think we know what they wanted, though, right?
Yeah,
I think they wanted Avengers.
Yeah, Avengers or some
They wanted
superhero or some comic reference or something like that. Which, I mean, I could agree with that. You know, why couldn't they bring in something small? Like I remember with She-Hulk, they brought in this one character, the Immortal or something like that. And you know that is a comic book character. Like why didn't we get that? You know, especially for small ones that like you just wouldn't really care about or notice at the very least. You know, which I mean, I guess I can say that that can be the biggest criticism of a Marvel show. You know, but ultimately, for the show, it wasn't needed.
Yeah. I also want to get to this as well. Let's just real quick. That was a really good episode.
Yeah, it was fun.
That's I think everything it needed to be to hook people on to what this would be. And I can certainly speak as somebody who watched this when it first aired. I was like, okay, I'm in. Like I wasn't like wowed, but I was like, this is good. I think I'm gonna keep watching the show. I like these characters, and if I like your characters, I'm most likely gonna keep coming back.
For sure. Yeah. Everyone was great. Everyone was funny. They got jokes right. I mean, there were a lot of jokes, but they were all unique within each character and all that. You know, with Fitzsimmons, they just have a cool dynamic with each other, and that's where the jokes come from. Skye, she doesn't know anything that's going on really, but you know she has her own mindset and all that. But her quirkiness, I guess you can say, is what makes her funny and all that. Coulson, he's just a bit of a nerd. Like he loves superhero stuff and everything. He loves the idea that he's just a spy. Like the first joke he makes, you know, he's like, sorry, there was a dark corner there, and I just had to do it. You know, might be a light bulb out or something. I don't know, but like him coming out of the shadow was like that was planned from him. It wasn't just like to look cool or anything like that. He purposely did it to look cool. Actually, sorry, he purposely did it to look cool, and he just kind of took advantage of the situation. Like that's just who he is.
Any other thoughts from the episode overall? I would say that the character who got the least amount of things would be May.
Yeah.
Only because that's just how she was written right now. I think the most we got out of May is that she destroyed a guy in like 2 seconds.
Yeah. Her character. I'm sure they're mainly focused on the main ones, Coulson and Skye, and they do really have to focus on Ward because, yeah. But no, I mean, she still becomes a great character as the show goes on, especially as you know more about her background.
Trying to find reactions, reviews to this when it came out. Let me again. This is a show talking about like not just rewatching the episodes and also what was going on. In the immediate aftermath of the show, there was some positive reviews for sure, because it's not really. I don't think this is an episode where you would get much out of that you could be angry at. I think, but I think ultimately, there were others I'm really curious. I'm gonna play this old review. This is a 10-year-old review at this point by Collider. I believe this features Dennis Zen. When they would be doing, I think, reactions to this. I am quite curious to see. I'm not gonna play the whole thing. I'm gonna play the first minute or so just to get a taste, right? To see what people thought. Because do you remember what people thought of the first episode? Specifically, I know the first season we have a better idea, but just this first episode.
No, not really.
I mean, it's been 10 years, right?
Yeah, it's been 10 years.
It's like,
and most of my main focus is, around this era, I guess you can say, were with the Netflix shows. That was the one people were really trying to be engaging with and all that. Whereas this one, I'm sure some people did watch the first episode. I think at the very least, maybe they just kind of thought of it as okay. But as the episodes went on, they talked less and less about it until the twist. But
they talked less and less because I don't know, for whatever reason, I would think that all the people who were connected to that Collider cabal and all those particular around that same time, we should also mention that that Collider or the AMC cabal, the Screen Junkies cabal, they were all like exploding and coming up, and so a lot of the movie fandom base was coming into fruition, basically. But I think that because of that, they played a substantial role also in how the show was perceived, because you just mentioned it yourself. As the weeks would go, they would just stop talking about this. Less and less, and then altogether completely. Because they all lost interest for the most part. Like, I just found it really interesting how it was that basically everybody on that team and other teams just were in unison that this just wasn't for them. All the while, they loved everything else, like literally everything else that was coming out of Marvel. And again, that's just something I don't understand. How you can like one and not the other. Ideally, I think you would like them both. So I'm really curious to see what these reactions are first. I'm playing them off here from my iPad, so hopefully you can make this out.
It's ABC.
Yeah, produced by Joss Whedon, the guy who directed Avengers, and in this first episode, he wrote it and directed it. I think he co-wrote it with his brother Jed Whedon and his wife Marissa Tasharin
too.
That team actually did stuff on Spartacus, but they also helped out with Joss Whedon's Dollhouse and Dr. Horrible's Sing-Along Blog as well. So they're part of the Whedon family. Marissa always jokes that she's the Asian Whedon.
Right, that's nice, yeah.
So, this is a pilot episode, a lot of really high expectations. Right. The reaction has been from...
I mean, you said it, right? High expectations. You know what? That may just be our answer, right?
Yeah.
That just that may be it. It's not necessarily bad to have high expectations, but I think that this level of high expectations was like through the roof, right? That people were thinking they were gonna get fucking Avengers showing up, right?
Yeah.
And then when they realized, oh, this is just a show about normal people. What? And you think you're gonna call and pass it off as a comic book show? I kid you not. One of my roommates, years ago, this was, at the time, I want to say that season 4 was airing, and he loved comic book stuff, right? He didn't watch the show, and I asked him once, "How come you don't watch the show?" And he flat out told me, he finds it hard to get into a show where there's not a superhero at the center of it, like a costumed superhero. And I'm like, I wonder how many people are like that.
Yeah.
Because I suspected it, but I never, until that happened, had it been confirmed in front of my face that maybe that's why a lot of people just were like, this is a spy show. I thought we were watching superheroes. Which is really dumb, because in the next season, there was one at the heart of it. There were several superheroes at the heart of it with Quake. So let me continue on what it said here.
Like people that loved it and people that hated it. I know a lot of people that are on different sides of the fence. And I say I liked it. It wasn't, for me, it wasn't great, and I didn't love it. But I enjoyed it, and I liked it, and I think there's a lot of potential there. It was definitely solid. There are some flaws we'll talk about later. But what do you think?
It's fun. I mean, it had that... It had a very Whedon-like, you know, banter and comedy, and you know, I mean, again, there's some holes and there's some stuff in there that's like okay, but I mean, it's fun. I like the cast. I like, you know, the two scientists or whatever, the kids.
Fitz and Simmons.
I mean, they're fun. I mean, it's got that light feeling. It's kind of nice. I mean, I think the problem is we watch so much heavy stuff. You and I, we watch Boardwalk Empire and Homeland and.
Breaking Bad.
It's just everything's so heavy. Like that's why I like Once Upon a Time. I like this. Like ABC's kind of light. You know, it's got some fun and some.
So you know, David Griffin here is not necessarily being. I don't think he's trying to be condescending, but he kind of failed at that in just that comment right there, because it's like, yeah, you know, every now and then we need something that's like a little light and breezy and not so like intense like Game of Thrones, and I'm like. Or Breaking Bad, and I'm like, why were you comparing this to Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones? Why the fuck were you? I mean,
yeah,
that's not fair. Like, and that's the thing too. It's like, this isn't just only being compared to the movies themselves, which, in my view, even if you were comparing it to the movies themselves, I think it was like side by side the whole time, like personally. But I guess that didn't seem to be most people's persuasion. But if you're like going into any random show and like you're thinking Marvel was going to deliver anything for the first ever show, by the way, on the scale of Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad, that's on you. Am I wrong to say that? That's on you.
No, yeah, I guess so. I mean, like you mentioned it before, it's like it's just all about expectations. And I said this also, like I can understand not having complaining that they didn't put lower characters, you know, D-level characters or something like that. Because again, with She-Hulk, it wasn't just the Immortal. We also got that frog dude or something like that, and then there were some couple villains. I think those dudes that like had construction worker weapons and everything. Like, you know, I remember people being like, "Why are we getting this now? Like, why haven't we gotten these before, or like in movies or with Netflix shows and everything?" And they could have done that here with Shield and all that. But, I mean, at the same time, though, you also gotta remember they weren't at their peak yet. I wouldn't say the Avengers movie was like their peak. Their peak was honestly, I think it happened maybe before Avengers Infinity War, for sure. For sure after Age of Ultron. But, yeah, at the moment, though, they were still very much early on their phases and everything, because the same thing happened with Arrow and all that, and the Flash and everything. Because like at the time, I remember one episode of Arrow, they had the Suicide Squad in them, and they killed off that show's version of Deadshot, and people were being like, I think they did that because of the Suicide Squad movie, that they didn't want two Deadshots from different universes basically and all that, and that's how they killed them off. Like it was really affecting the shows were really affected by the DC movies coming out and everything. And I remember when Supergirl coming out, people, you know, obviously there were people being like, "Oh, why Supergirl? Now that I can be Superman." It's like, because Superman's gonna get his own movie. It's not gonna. You don't expect the Superman show for a very long time, and then we did later on because after it fucking got killed, the DCEU.
Yeah. Let me play a little bit more of what they were saying here.
Family type stuff to it. It's good. I mean, I'm definitely
I think a lot of the haters thought it was too light, that it was too much of a comedy and too silly and whatnot.
Right.
And I
what universe do you think this resides in? It was too silly. It was too comedic. The MCU is like an action comedy franchise. I'm sorry, that comment blew my mind. I'm like, what? It had too much humor?
I kind of understand that. It did go a little far in terms of like, it wasn't, you know, maybe as serious as I thought it was going to be. But, you know, you have to understand the way, I know a lot of people watch the show because it's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and they loved Avengers, they love Marvel Universe. But a lot of these people are not familiar with Joss Whedon. They just think Avengers is like the first movie he ever made or something like that. But if you've ever watched Joss Whedon's shows, other than Firefly, which is great from the beginning, all his other shows start off very slow.
Right.
They actually.
And this is the other thing too. What do people mean? I think everybody feels like people mean the exact same thing when people say this, but let's just be real here for a minute. What do people mean when they say it starts off slow?
It's just set up.
Like, do they mean like, I don't think they mean that the actual pacing is slow, because like this thing moved quickly. Like as soon as we started, it ended already. Like we were already at the end.
Yeah.
But I think people are saying it's like, what they mean to say is it was slow to grab their interest. For whatever reason, what they were watching wasn't like working for them.
Yeah.
That's what they mean to say.
And it is better to start off slow. I mean, at least for one like long running show that I can compare it to is The Walking Dead. I remember, the first episode, you see Rick in the horse, he's going through the city and all that, and all of a sudden he's like a horde of zombies and everything. And I remember when me and Natalie watched that episode, we were both like, what the fuck, and everything. Like it, technically the episode was slow, but like that's one thing I'm pretty sure people want in the show, where it's just like intensity, like right off the bat, it gets moving. But that doesn't necessarily help out in the long run, because again, it's Walking Dead. I honestly lost interest in that show as it went on, and so intensity or fast pacing, it doesn't necessarily help. Another one, best example of this situation is Percy Jackson. I read the books, I watched the first episode, and I was like, okay, this is great. We're going we're moving from this and this and this super quickly and all that, blah, blah, blah. That's great and all. But again, my biggest complaint of that show is that it's 8 episodes and 35 minutes at the very least each episode. And I want to stay with these characters. I want more interactions with them. I want the show to be longer so that we can get more stuff from the books into the TV and everything. And this is something that we talked about before, like with these 22 episodes shows and everything, with 6 seasons and everything. Why do we go back to these? It's because there are a lot of moments with the characters that's just fun, that like you almost miss, especially like after you see the ending of it. You're kind of like, oh my gosh, you guys were like this at some point, and it's great to see. And so yeah, again, it's just going back to the whole expectation of things. They want action, they want intensity already, and it's like that's not how it works.
And then we all know who this individual is. I don't think I need to introduce him, but I'm gonna play not the whole thing, but a few here. I'm curious to see if this is something that he said. I don't know. I think after 6 episodes.
Here, I've just finished watching episode 3
of 3.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, this is a show that I've been looking forward to for a long time, just like everybody else. It stars Clark Gregg as Agent Coulson, who I'm a huge Clark Gregg fan. Love that dude, and I love the character a lot. And, I thought I'd give the show a try, and it's horrible. It's a terrible show. Now, let me mention a couple things that I like about the show first. Ming-Na, Clark Gregg are awesome, and I like their characters. Whenever Clark or Agent Coulson has lines to speak, they're usually pretty good. He's a pretty good character and all that kind of stuff. Also, I think there's some real potential there for Ming-Na's character. She's the only character there that seems to have any potential or mystery or depth or anything at all. Like there could be something there, But other than that, this is a TV show that treats its viewers like idiots. Like all the way from episode 1 to episode 3, their characters, if you can call them that, are all caricatures. They're hyper-exaggerated caricatures, like the freaking Wonder Twin scientists. What scientists? And like, oh yeah, I'm 15 and I am the most brilliant nuclear geneticist on the planet. Blah blah blah. The hacker girl. Oh, I'm 20 years old and I've got perfect hair and makeup and perfect clothing, but I live in a van and I'm the most brilliant hacker in the world. Blah blah. Like, give me a break. That the agent dude. I'm the guy you call if you need to disarm a nuclear weapon. Did he? I looked around at the people with it. Did he really just say that? I'm the guy who you call to disarm a nuclear weapon, not to do blah, blah. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? Seriously? These characters are horrible. They're terrible. And they treat us like idiots. Like that. Remember that in episode 1? When it was really cool to see Reverend Book there, by the way, when Book comes in and Colby Smulders is there, and like they don't know what subtlety is. They think as an audience we're really too stupid to catch anything that might be remotely subtle. So what do? They pull out their big hammer. This is a microphone, but they pull out their big hammer and bang you over the head with it because they gotta have that line of dialogue. Reverend Book goes, "He really doesn't know, does he?" And Agent, then Colby Smulders, "He can never know." Oh, God, please, give us some credit. Please. Give us just the slightest But one of the things that really annoys me the most is that this show completely realizes how bad it is, and they know the only way they can get the fanboys, and I'm saying the word fanboys like it's a disparaging remark. I am one of them. So, whatever. But they know that us fanboys will overlook all the crap in that show if you just reference the Avengers enough. Blah blah, crappy dialogue, Stark. Ooh, he said Stark. I watched Iron Man. Crappy dialogue. I found a hammer. Oh, he's talking about Thor's hammer. This show's awesome. Or, where it's something else, like, I have a lot of field experience fighting alongside the Avengers. Oh, he said Avengers. Isn't this show great? Ah! Like, it's so infuriatingly bad. It's terrible dialogue. And, I just get so tired. Look, all film, television, whatever, it's all subjective. And if you like it, I'm happy you like it. I really am glad that you do. More power to you. I'm glad that you're getting some enjoyment out of it because I am clearly not. But it's just so infuriating knowing the type of hopes I had for it. And
that's the gist of it, basically. That was John Campea at the time, a really, really big guy on AMC Movie Talk, which was really exploding off on the internet. And as I mentioned earlier, they kind of had a monopoly on it when it came to fandom opinions. And I feel like he was the loudest voice in the room. That video, 42,000 views. That I just played. I think people had very different reasons for why it didn't click initially, the show. But I feel like similarly with like Last Jedi, for example, the loudest voices in the room kind of just say how they feel, and then everybody else just like bandwagons. I'm like, oh yeah, he said it, whatever that guy said. And I feel like, and I remember when Force Awakens came out, Max Landis was like, Mary Sue to Rey. Then guess what? On Screen Junkies, everybody else like gleamed onto that and they just like bandwagoned it. What Max Landis did to The Force Awakens, John Campea did to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Fans were just like looking for reasons. They couldn't really articulate why they thought it was bad. And even when they did, it was kind of embarrassing, them trying to explain like just now. Even that was embarrassing. It was like, what? that like, what show are you watching?
Yeah, for sure.
We just watched a different episode, right? Like he couldn't have been talking about the episode that we just saw. Like, did you ever hear that review before, or this is the first time you heard it?
No, that's the first time I heard it for sure.
What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, no, I was just kind of like, I mean, the way you see my reaction on that moment, it's just how I am with every other like me YouTuber.
Yeah.
Right now, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I feel like you don't know what you're talking about. Like, we complain about like the characters, and I was like, these were caricatures. It's like, have you not seen any other show? Like, they're all kind of exaggerations of like real people and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially on this kind of show, where like fantasy type of show, you kind of have to do that. I don't think you ever really
give it a chance.
No, I don't think people ever really complain of a grounded character. I mean, no, sorry. I don't think ever people like love a character for them being so like super grounded or anything like that. Like I know people like Lord of the Rings. That one, they're not overacting on certain elements of the movies and all that. People, I remember some complimenting Ian McKellen's acting when he was like the. What do you say is like the one ring to rule them all, one ring and all that, blah, blah, blah. It's like, he's not overacting. People did compliment him that he's taking this seriously. He's not over exaggerating like the delivery of the lines and everything. He's taking it like, you should fear like what the ring says and all that, blah, blah, blah. But there's still like a Shakespearean element, I guess you could say, of in those movies and all that. And it's still, in a sense, exaggerated. I remember, I think one like that always stood out to me that was like a little bit too much was in the second movie where they're trying to look for Merry and Pippin, and Legolas, like I think the sun was rising, but it was like red in the background, and he goes, "A red sun rises, blood has spilled recently," or something like that. And it's like it's a little bit over exaggerated and all that, and but it works though. Like all of these characters are characters of the show, especially Gimli. Sorry, I said Ghibli.
Ghibli.
I know. Like they're all a little bit over exaggerated, and that's just how it is with fantasy. Any sort of form of fantasy, especially with this one. So it's not really. It's just not really a good excuse to complain about the character and all that. You can, if he went on specific like certain lines of like I didn't like this character because when she did this and all that, and I didn't think that was a good idea. Blah blah blah. He didn't do that. And then someone like when he went to the whole, it's like to make the audience feel dumb. The whole line of like he really doesn't know. It's like he can never know. It's like I feel like it's just could the line been better? Sure, but I don't think it wasn't so much like the audience is dumb. It's just
is he wrong when he says maybe it's beating over the head? Maybe that's fair, but then also how is that unique to that show? Like that's most TV shows that do that. That's the thing, right?
I mean, also though, I think it's just trying to like let us know like there's more to this. We're not like because he's saying because Coulson is saying, oh yeah, I just went to the doctor, went to therapy, and just went back into the field and everything. It's like no, it's like that line specifically by Maria Hill. That's just to let us know it's like no, okay, we're not just gonna end it there. We're gonna explain to this further. Just wait and all that.
Because other than that, it doesn't really this doesn't get into that whole mystery at all.
Yeah,
the whole episode.
I'm like looking at the episodes afterwards, and I feel like we don't really get into it until maybe episode 5, or
it takes a minute.
Yeah, it takes a while.
It takes a minute, and to be fair, that's one of the things that people had gripes with early on in the show. That it wasn't like, what's it called? That it was like wasting time. That it wasn't getting to it faster. And to an extent, that is the most fair I've heard, I would say, criticisms of it. But this is just how TV works. I don't know what it was. I just feel like usually this kind of stuff, this was pretty common for television. And the fact that people have problems with, stuff like this, it just makes you like, but you didn't have a problem with it anywhere else. Why all of a sudden is this becoming an issue for you? Do you not know how TV works? Yeah. Let me get into On One Media. He is somebody who is reacting to this show for the first time as of 7 months ago. Right now, the most recent reaction he did to this, please go to his channel. Go and watch those reactions. It's so OMN, One Media. That's the channel's name. And he currently is doing, he just finished the episode where Lady Sif comes back for the second time because the Kree realized there was an inhuman transformation that happened, and he comes down to basically kill Sky. Or Daisy at that point, or actually still Sky. But I want to share his thoughts because they're far more recent. As I just told you, he first watched the first episode back in what was 7 months ago. I don't know, but here, and he was warned of it starts off slow. That's the tagline, I guess, of season 1. This is what he said.
What?
Oh, okay.
Oh Oh, wait! Aside from some of the a little slightly, forgive me, it's not bad. It's just there was some cheap-looking shaky cam in certain scenes where there was like a noticeable drop in camera quality for certain handheld shots compared to some of the standing cams. That was just something that stood out. But like the pacing of this episode is really good. The story structure was really good. I had like a fun banter and beat to the whole thing. That everybody was playing into, I don't know, kind of the kind of TV show kind of bop and vibe, and the way that the kind of humor was played and the kind of, TV fucking broadcast horniness of it all in a little way. But it was fun. It was playful. We got to meet all these different characters. I like the whole moral quandary of the whole thing, and the whole like all the little nuggets and references to the greater world. It was, I don't know, man. I really liked it. The music was really solid. The action, when it was there, was really solid. I thought some of the hand-to-hand was actually shot pretty well. We have some quirky characters. I assume we got our through line, kind of, with this rising tide. Whoever is dishing out these centipede, these superpowers, it's kind of going to be maybe our looming thread. But I'm wondering if we're going to be... Every episode will pick up a little new crumb, everything, with a kind of like... I don't know if it has like a hero or villain or whatever of the week kind of structure with a through line connecting everything. I really
That's
don't
basically
remember the
it.
structure of the show. But that would make sense with the length. But I don't know. I really liked the way they parsed out all the information in this, the way we got to our introduction to the characters that we're just now meeting for the first time. We have our Maria Hill in here, R.I.P., and we have our Phil Coulson resurrected by some machination, which or at least I never got far enough to really learn what that was. But I know that the whole Tahiti thing is like, I don't know. I know it's like a mystery or whatever. Like whatever they did to bring him back is...
Because it takes a while. I think you don't really find out the true nature of Tahiti until episode... I think 14. Episode 14. That's the episode where, that's what it is.
It's literally called Tahiti.
Yeah, Tahiti. But then even then, the true nature of that, because they play with some other things too. It's like, for the remainder of that season, it's more so just the fact that this is a really fucked up thing that happened to Coulson, and then like how it turns out Coulson was also, he was the one that was in charge of that program until they also basically erased his memories. But then it comes back in the second season. Once he sees the alien writing, it triggers him to also do those carvings. And then it's revealed that it's actually a blueprint for an alien city, which that leads to the Inhumans being on the show. So I don't know if that's... I can't imagine they thought that far ahead just from episode 1 about this, but like the true full extent of what is involved with like how they brought Coulson back, you don't really get the full effect until really season 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I understand like that could be like really, really long time to like, I guess, pay that off, but I don't know. I feel like there were other things at play in the show that were keeping your attention. That I didn't necessarily need that, almost immediately, but maybe that was a factor. I can't say. Ultimately, though, I just felt this is a really, really strong pilot on all accounts, and I feel knowing that the show themselves realized that they needed to do something for the first like half of the season because they can't reveal Hydra's here until the Winter Soldier happens. So they're like months and months and months just like, well, how the fuck are we going to keep the show going? And one of the things that I hadn't realized until I watched Emma's video essay that I plugged early on the show was, while all of this was happening, the team, the writing team, the producers, they're all like, and the crew as well, the cast, what the fuck's going on? What's going to happen to our show? It's like, because they felt it almost immediately. You can't just like, by the time we got to the 12th episode of season 1, the audience had come. So first, it was an audience of 12 million viewers. By the time I want to say that, by the time the finale of season 1 happened in May of 2014, maybe 5 million viewers, maybe 4 million viewers, maybe. Like a dramatic drop off in audience. And so, but I think it was even more dramatic in real time, David, because there was a panic going on. Because as Jeff Loeb mentioned, the producer of the show, is like, hey, look, we kept getting different kinds of notes from various different people, the ABC executives, the Disney executives, the Marvel team. And yes, while it is a common misconception, the Marvel TV team and the Marvel Studios team have always been in contact. But the Marvel TV team was rarely allowed to do anything to do with the Marvel Studios team. However, in the first season, they were getting a lot of interference in terms of like what they could and couldn't do. I'm trying to look up real quick just to sell the point what the ratings were recorded for. Okay, so here it is. Episode 1, the ratings were 12.12 million. By the time we get to the last episode of that season, that audience had gone from 12 million viewers to 5.45 million viewers. And then by the end of season 2, 3.8 million viewers. By the end of season 3, 3.0 million viewers. By the end of season 4, 2.0 million viewers. By the end of season 5, 1.8 million viewers. At the end of season 6, it stayed 1.8 million. And at the end of season 7, 1.4 million viewers. I mean, that the numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
That audience just went away and they never came back. But you know what? For the 1.4 million viewers that stuck around, isn't it pretty amazing how a show with such poor ratings got to 7 seasons?
Yeah. And to an ending at the very least, too.
And to well, technically 2 endings, right? They had 2 finales. Season 5 was supposed to be the original series finale. And then season 7. So, because when season 5 happened, and we'll get into it when we get to that point, but like, they knew that was it. Because ABC was already trying to replace them with the Inhumans. Then that blew up in their faces. And they were like, guys, I know we told you this was the end, but do you want to come back? That's kind of what happened, basically. To S.H.I.E.L.D. is like, well, look who came crawling back. Sure, we'll come back. And then we got 2 more seasons out of that. So, but yeah, the whole history of the show is really, really, I think to me, well, maybe only to me, very, very interesting. And we'll be talking about that as the show goes along. But, yeah, so much already in the first episode that just kind of like primes you for what is to follow. And I think that as we go on into the future episodes, there will be like maybe a lull there of like, I'm not going to lie. There are going to be some episodes that are going to come up that are like not very interesting and easily are like at the bottom of like all 136 episodes they ever did. But more than you remember are pretty damn good.
Yeah.
If only because of the character work. Like there's a Ward and Fitz episode coming. There's a Fitzsimmons episode that you mentioned that's coming up. And there's especially with these first 3, there's a lot of emphasis on getting us to know who Skye is and what she can do and what she's here to do for. So like, yeah, there are some stops along the way where I'm like, this wasn't all that great. I grant you. That being said, there's never been an episode of this show that I didn't enjoy at the very least. And I think you are with me on that. Like, yeah, some of the episodes that we're gonna cover in the next few weeks are not gonna be great, but I still had a good time.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like one of those shows. I think, okay, even if it's a weak episode, I'm still gonna have a good time watching it.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, I remember we watching it, and I did have a lot of fun with these episodes for sure. I really can't think of like a least favorite episode, honestly.
Yeah. That might also be something to do at the end of we could probably do at the end of the seasons. We could like rank some of these episodes and see how we feel overall. But a lot of it, I remember a lot of the show. But even if you do remember a lot, going back and experiencing this again it's like watching it anew, and it's like, wow, like oh man, you guys are like, you have no idea what you're in for. You have no idea what you're in for. We had no idea what we were in for with this show. But yeah, so much more to say as the weeks go on. I think we're gonna stop here. David, did you have any final thoughts as far as today is concerned? You seem to have a good time. No other observations as far as you can tell? I know I said basically everything as I usually do, but just if there's anything else you want to mention.
I think we said everything we need to say.
Basically. So we're going to stop here, and we will see you next time for episode 2. We're going to, look, at this point, I don't really see a reason to not be all in. That being said, I'm not necessarily promising like 136 consecutive weeks of episodes. So just be clear about that. But we're going to try and keep it as consistent as possible, at least once a week. We might take some breaks in between for the seasons, and we'll see how it goes there. But I thought this went off rather well. I was happy to have David here. Kudos to Alexis for canceling Turn of the Page to allow this to happen tonight. This couldn't have happened without you. And we hope that everybody who watches stays tuned. Leave a like and a comment down below if you want to engage with anything that I've said. But I know I didn't at all get into the canon debate here in this episode. That was intentional. We can have that discussion later on, but I kind of did it to show that's kind of a really pointless question at this point. At least to me, it's like, and I think I did it to prove a point. There is a lot to say about this show before we can even bother touching canon. We did. How long have we been recording? Like an hour and a half at least.
Yeah.
Didn't bring it up one time. I mean, we did bring up some in universe like connections here and there, but like I know people want to like drone on and on and on about like canon and bring them back, and it's like we're gonna be here for 136 hours, so like at some point it'll be brought up, but it's like, hey, it ain't the most important thing in the world. And I know from my perspective as somebody who doesn't really care as much any longer about the MCU as a thing, it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. All that matters to me is that people find the show and that people like it, and they like it so much that they share it, and it keeps this thing going and keeps it alive. That's all I'm here to do. That's all I'm interested in. And I'm just here to fight back and push back against the mentality that really kind of like plagued the show early on. It's like, no, this is good. It always has been. People are fucking wrong. And we're going to just finally stand up and say our piece. So I hope you enjoyed this time. I hope you enjoyed our show. And I hope you come back. David, thank you so much for making this possible. Thank you for being here in general. I know that nobody else on Red Spotlight would even dare with this, but we're gonna do it. We're gonna see if we can do it all the time. Anyway, stay tuned for more content. We have so many other shows. Turn the Page, Red Spotlight, audio commentaries. David, am I forgetting any of these shows?
Quest Center.
Quest Center, and then the other ones are not really active, right?
Yeah.
I keep wanting to call it Game Quest. It's like, no, it's Quest Center, idiot. It's Quest Center. So we're here, guys. Stay tuned on YouTube and anywhere you listen to podcasts. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.